If you look at it, there's a very dramatic cutoff from in tier 2. There's only one person who received more than 4 tier 1 votes, and that's Josh Allen, which kind of shows that he is the next possible guy, right? He is the closest one.
He's closer to tier 1 than tier 2. He has more tier 1 votes than the rest of the guys below him combined.
Exactly. So he is very much like the next guy. He is the one on the cusp. So when you were talking to people about Allen, I'm curious about the argument on both sides. Why were there people who thought he belonged in tier 1 and deserved mention along those guys ahead of him?
I think enough people thought he played at a tier 1 level last season to put him there. But the people who didn't just want to see it another year in light of what came before, right? So
he was 22nd. In 2020 in the tier. So he ranked 22nd. He was behind Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr.
Oh, I know.
It's a huge jump. I mean, obviously we know that. We know he played it so much better, but when you look at it in those terms, it is stark.
And you have to get into tier 1, it's sort of like getting into the Hall of Fame or something, You don't just get in usually off of 1 year. Even when Matt Ryan won the MVP, he got close. When Lamar Jackson won the MVP, he got close. But to actually get in there and have most people say it, you got to do it like again. You got to back it up, not be MVP again. But tier 1 is, we should give these definitions anyway. A tier 1 quarterback can carry his team each week. The team wins because of him. He expertly handles pure pass situations. He has no real holes in his game. So Josh Allen solved the accuracy hole last year, and maybe that continues. But if there's still a hole in his game for me, it's in the wild card playoff game, taking an 18-yard sack with the game on the line and fumbling, and your team recovers, or else the same narratives are there the whole offseason, right? And then you go out the next week and you score 10 points on Baltimore, right? It's not like you scored 10 points on offense and you lose by 2 touchdowns the next week. So there may be a little bit more for him just to validate it, do it again. But I think he made such a spectacular jump. Those quote unquote accuracy gains, right? If you just measure them loosely and completion percentages at all levels of the field people are like, all right, I need to see that again because I've never seen that before,
Even within the season last year, it felt like that, where you have that first month and think, well, there's no way this can be sustained just because quarterbacks improve, right? They undeniably do. But to be so inaccurate on deep passes in 2019 and then just be lights out for almost the entire season last year, that's really difficult. And I think it comes back to the conversation we've had about Josh Allen so many times and why I think there will be some mistakes that are made in light of Josh Allen's success, and that we haven't seen a quarterback improve like this. Not in this way. Quarterbacks improve, but to get this much better and this much more accurate in the intermediate area and then in the deep area of the field, just some of the things that he can do, it really is unprecedented in the ways that we've seen him get better specifically. And I think that's why there can be a little bit of dissonance with understanding, all right, how much of this is real? How much of this can sustain? Can he get even better? Because I still think people are sorting through and trying to process what's happened with him over the last 2 years.
Absolutely. I think most people that I talk to think he's going to have another good year, but it wouldn't be shocking if he fell off, right? I mean, it wouldn't be a shock if he played a little bit more like he did in the past. I think it would be a surprise. I think people feel good about him.
I tend to agree. I think that if you look at some of the numbers under pressure last year, they weren't like Herbert's, obviously. They weren't that dramatically different than what he did in the pocket. But he still, you look at that, watch that offense, there are a lot of big plays that come just because he's making stuff happen. And that is a skill. He has the physical ability to do that, but it's occasionally hard to rely on that stuff all the time. And I also think that their receiving talent does a lot for them as well, where Diggs is just really, really good. You watch that offense, they're doing some interesting stuff, but the talent of those players really lifts them in a lot of different ways. And I'm just curious if that's going to be able to continue this year. I have faith that it can, because I'm the biggest Stephon Diggs fan there is. And I also think Josh Allen's pretty good.
Yeah. I think people, are big fans of what Buffalo's doing overall. They've had good continuity there. Dayball stayed there, and so there's a nice just sort of, nurturing of bringing along of him. And maybe that's another reason why, hey, we'll see it. Well, let's see it again. He's in a pretty good situation. Diggs helped a lot. But it's nothing. I think it's, there wasn't the level of skepticism on him that there has been in the past because of his decision making. He made a lot of bad decisions before. And I wondered if that would come out of his game. And I think it's still always going to be there a little bit. Like I said, the 18-yard sack at the end of the wild card playoff game, you can't do that. You can't take an 18-yard sack and fumble the ball. It just can't. Drew Brees doesn't do it. Rodgers doesn't do it. You just can't. And he used to do that 10 times a year, and now he did it 3 times a year or whatever. You know what I mean?
It's funny because his game, he's very smart. And I think that's something that people don't really understand if you don't talk to him or talk to people that have worked with him before, and some of the protection stuff that he's able to do and some of the control that he has. He's an advanced quarterback when it comes to the mental stuff, but then he makes these kind of boneheaded decisions. And it's almost Rivers-esque in the way that when you talk to people about him, they think Rivers is a genius. It's a different level, but then you have these crushing mistakes that don't seem to align with that sort of football intelligence.
Yeah, think of it like there's, Carson Wentz has that too, where he just can't, he can't help himself sometimes. And I think Josh Allen did a better job of helping himself last year. He still has that in him. It's sort of like
that Captain Chaos gene is still there for sure.
It's like a boxer who just can't help but just opening up and throwing some haymakers, right? You're going to take one on the chin, but sometimes he's okay with that. Like he's just going to drop to a knee and hop back up,
Well, when you have more stopping power than pretty much anyone in the world, you tend to believe in that and have a lot of faith in that. And he is as physically talented as pretty much any quarterback we've seen come along.